Sometimes we forget why we're here. It's easy to fall off track. These help us remember.
These battle scars don't look like they're faded, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change. These battles.
Growing up I had a dream, something no one else could see. Tell me what it means when your faith is falling beneath your knees and you can't breathe. Everything you see reminds you of what you're not or something you won't be. You gotta take what you're given, that's how we live it. Don't be mad at the system, it's simply how we've existed. I hear a lot of people talking like they politicians and choose to be an accountant because it's safe in the business. Not because they wanna do it, just because they heard it pays. And who the fuck wants to be poor knowing that's how we've been raised? Society is getting heavy, I can feel the weight. The pressure of success is like 100 million pounds of shame. And that's the reason I'm staying up late, trying to find a way to escape the stereotypes this day and age is making me feel like the only way I'll be happy is getting signed to a label and making money through rapping. I wanna share my emotion because this world is attacking the very principle of life that lets the people be happy. If you don't have a reason to breathe, why even live? These battle scars are impressions of everything that it is.
Don't look like they're faded, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change. These battle scars don't look like they're faded, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change. These battles.
Now, if I had a voice that reached 100 million people, I'd tell them there's a reason that we're all created equal. Cause some decide to be great and some decide a sequel to an average person's life is simply what they want to be. So you make your decision, all I know is what I'm given. Won't define the life I lead or the way I dwell in existence. I've seen a greater image on the walls of where I'm living, and the words twisted and scripted remind me of something written. Faith is a gift that is given down to the people. If one believes it, one receives it. It's given if it is needed. Don't ever think you're trapped in a life that you never wanted. Your options are infinite, that's some mathematical logic. I'm not saying I'm a prophet, I'm speaking for what it's worth. These lyrics define my prayers and these battle scars on my church. Not saying I'm a prophet, I'm speaking for what it's worth. These lyrics define my prayers, these battle scars on my church.
Don't look like they're faded, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change. These battle scars don't look like they're faded, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change. These battles.
Oh, good. The camera is centered properly. I see Hector is on. I just wanted to show him before he might take off. I'm using, this way. I'm using my LPF little notepad here because still a little bit of COVID brain fog. And when I think of something I want to say that I can't say right away, I jot it down so I don't forget, which I should have did before the show because there's all things I want to cover. And now I'm like, oh my God. I'm not going to remember. And thank you for being here for the algorithm for Dalgo File. Speaking of algorithm, thank you. You're keeping me a real YouTuber. Please like and share and subscribe. No, the sharing, that's great if you want to do that. I'm not so sure how much that helps. But liking and subscribing and commenting help a lot. Again, always everyone's interested in my t-shirts, so I just say them right away. I think you're all just, wanting to look at my boobs, but that's okay. Kick Butts Day. I don't know where I got this. I found it in my t-shirt stash, and I'm like, every day is a good day to kick status butt, I guess, or tyrant butt. All right, so before we get started, I keep forgetting everything's backwards, with the camera. The grifting, that's it. Down below, still trying to raise some photocopy funds to have some literature on my campaign table, but that's it. Everything else has been paid for. Like, after this is all over, we're going to realistically go over with you guys how much it costs to run an actual campaign for LNC. But let me tell you, it gave me a lot of fundraising experience. I'm running for town council later this year, and I'm no longer scared to ask for money. Used to be something that wasn't my best. But now, unfortunately, it's necessary. Also, some good news. I'm not going to get into the literally gory details right now, but you guys have heard me say kind of vaguely over the past couple weeks that I had a health scare a few weeks ago, and still don't know what happened, but we've ruled out the worst. So whatever it is, I can deal with it. It could just be something that never happens again. But honestly, it was a cancer scare, and that's been ruled out. So any other causes, whatever, So I was dealing with that. So if you're wondering why I was very distracted, and I'll get into more details when I'm going to do a separate show on it, because a lot of people, listen, I overshare. You all know that. Plus, I've learned you can keep nothing private. So I just put it out there for everybody. But I'm going to get into the details on a separate show where I could put a warning right up front that it's going to have medical content that some people are not going to want to hear. So I don't want to just slip that in like James Weeks stripping in the middle of a convention when nobody was there for that. You know what I mean? If anyone wants to hear the details, that will be in a different show. There's multiple reasons why I do share these kinds of things. I do think we need to take shame away from certain things, and there's a possibility that what happened is a things that, the Conan that's going around, the Conan that I had last month, so YouTube doesn't censor me. There's actually been reported cases of what happened to me being something that happens to people afterwards. And I still got the cough. So I don't mind getting this info out here in case this is something happening to other people. And they'll go, wow, that happened to me too. And it's information they can give their doctor. But again, that will be a separate show. But when you guys learn, you're going to be like, oh my God, you spent 20-something hours writing an appeal while all that was going on. That's how this relates to Massachusetts. Yes, I did. And I can't believe, looking back, that I did that. That ties into the whole passion thing, too, because I wasn't going to give up. I was not going to give up. I will not give up on these people. These are real people behind the terrible actions that have gone on in Massachusetts. They are right. And nothing is going to make me lose sight of that. And when I make a promise to someone that I'm going to do something, unless I'm like, JJ's going to say arrested, unless I'm like hospitalized or, actually physically incapacitated, I am going to keep my promises. That's one of my values that, the same. This has been a hell of a year, hasn't it? I did that appeal while something we'll talk about later was going on. And everyone knows I wrote the platform committee survey in the midst of the worst of COVID. Or Conan, as we're calling it now. Conan the Barbarian was beating me up while I wrote that platform committee survey. And SurveyMonkey was not behaving. Oh my God, that was another nightmare. I had two nightmare experiences this year with being ill. But is that it? I think that's it for the intro. Y'all remind me if there's anything else. Just one last grift. Yeah, I'm trying to raise for literature for my campaign table. And I honestly can't wait for Reno to be over because I want to get back to a normal life. The stress level is intense and it's not fun anymore. The stress level is not. Oh, I know what I forgot. Here we go. I'm glad I went through my notes here because I gotta help, keep the lights on. So sponsor. And let me answer your question, Daniel. I don't consider YouTube to be social media, and I know some people do. But what I mean by social media is and I haven't been good at the fast, but I've actually been good at it for about the past week. I mean Facebook, Twitter. I mean where you interact with content or see content that is just toxic that you don't want to see. YouTube, I have a lot more control over what I see and don't see. And yeah, that's what I meant. And Restream automatically posts links to my YouTube channel on social media. That's not me doing that. That's my software doing that. So hopefully that explained it. But I have sucked at the social media fast. That's a whole other thing. I have gotten a lot better at it this week. It's just become absolutely overwhelming. And I've got too much to do. Because with the health issues, I didn't get everything done that I wanted to get done that week and a half that was going on. And I am so busy right now. I can't even tell you. Like, I have to schedule time to make sure I have alone time with my husband. It's so freaking busy. And I've had to tell so many people no that write me. I'm like, I'm sorry, I just can't right now. I just can't. All right. Now back to the sponsor. Asteros, like Fred Astaire, even though it's spelled Asteros. So, Asteros.com/free. What will you get if you go to Asteros.com/free? Well, I'm glad you asked. Even though, wait, hold on. I need this.
Boom, chicka, wow, wow.
You will get free surface penetration auditing. Yeah, baby. But basically, it's a cybersecurity audit. They'll poke and prod. My God, I just can't keep away from like having adult content. They will poke and prod at your security systems on your electronic or cyber assets, websites, things like that, and determine if it's obviously very vulnerable with that free test at asteros.com/free. But they also do much more extensive testing. They will help you beef up your cybersecurity, and they also do cybersecurity awareness training for your employees, where they basically get them to fall for phishing attempts. And if you think you couldn't fall for it, that's what I thought. Something similar was done at a law firm that I worked at, and I fell for one of them. So this is definitely worthwhile. So thank you very much, Zach, for your sponsorship. Yay, I did that. And I haven't mentioned this in a while because I know a lot of you had already seen it, but it's about time to again. Because there are always birthdays and things going on. And you always need to have like cool gifts to buy for the shorties in your life. And why not, inculcate in them independence and freedom and free thinking? So, children's book, Tale of Two Brothers. I do, in fact, love it. And Sean Dempsey's a friend of mine. He's the author. I met him at PorkFest when he asked me if I would, promote his book for him. I promoted it very heavily during the holidays for gifts. And I kind of laid off for a while. I did just say shorty. So I laid off for a while so I didn't oversaturate. No, I meant kids. So you're shorties. Kids, oh my God, I got so distracted here. So I didn't want to oversaturate it, but you're always having to buy gifts, for the kids. And for the bairns. This is a good one. The story is great. The drawings are adorable. And you can get it on Amazon or at tale2brothers.com. All right. Did my promos. And yeah, Sean Dempsey is awesome. So get it just for yourself. It's really good. I enjoyed it. And I've given away copies now. All righty. Now we're going to get on to what's going on with Massachusetts. So as you know, we went over the appeal of a week and a half ago, whenever it was. And we were just waiting for the responses to come in and to see what the JC was going to do. Well, the JC did something I certainly didn't expect. I will say that. Not at all happy with it. I think it was a terrible decision. I don't think it was made in bad faith. I want to get that right up front because people will claim that. No, I don't. And I haven't seen the vote count yet, though I've requested it because I'm very curious. How is my phone getting interrupted? I put it on Do Not Disturb. How is this happening? Give me a minute. Just give me a minute. Give me a minute. I put it on Do Not Disturb. What is that that's doing that? Give me a second. I got to go look at my phone. Okay. I put it on Do Not Disturb. Have no idea why it let a phone call through. No idea. The Do Not Disturb on the new iOS sucks. It never works properly. Okay. But, yeah, what was I saying? Oh, I'm not happy with the decision, and I'm very curious as to the vote count. It's not that it matters. Just very curious if it was a very divided decision. And I could tell you one reason why I'm not happy with this decision. I feel like we were misled. Not intentionally. Not intentionally. No, it's not more. It is a little bit more complicated than that, Hector. Yeah, let me tell people what the decision was first. They just said that they did not have jurisdiction at this time because they are not allowed to revoke a disaffiliation within 90 days of convention. We're going to talk about how they misapplied that bylaw, but that was the decision. No decision. Basically, we can't talk about it right now. That was the decision. There was no decisions made on the facts of the case. And in fact, Mary, apparently without the consent of the rest of the JC, so this will tell you something, offered some unsolicited advice as to how we could proceed. The reason why I know it was unsolicited because D. Frank Robinson wrote immediately afterwards that he thought it was inappropriate for the JC to offer advice to the appellants. But the advice Mary gave us, I already knew. But in delivering the decision, Mary said, appellants can always refile this after the convention with the new JC or petition the LNC to hear the Bowen resolution. I already knew both those things, and we will be putting the bylaw on screen. I don't have it downloaded, but I'll pull it up. We're not at that point yet. Or we'll pull up her actual decision so you can see it. I thought that advice from Mary was like part of the official JC decision. Now that I know it was just her, I feel better about the decision because that's basically Mary signaling, I think you guys had a case and you should refile it. Now, maybe I'm misreading her. I don't want to put words in her mouth. I could just tell you how I took it. That's how I take it. I also would be very surprised if Alicia voted against jurisdiction as well. And here's why. Alicia, in her opinion on the first appeal, which was also past the 90-day mark, said you should have filed a count for constructive disaffiliation with this appeal. But that was also past the 90 days mark. Alicia would not have said that in her first opinion if she thought that would have been impossible to do. Now, she could have changed her mind between the time she wrote that first opinion and the time this one came up. But at the time she wrote that first opinion, she definitely did not think it was jurisdictionally out of bounds, or she would not have said that. Alicia is very, very careful. And At the time of filing the second appeal, Alicia scolded me and saying judicial economy should have made you guys, not that that's a rule. She basically had said it's kind of rude to file 2 appeals. You should have just filed this with the first one, which would have had the same time problem if that in fact was the case. So I'm fairly certain that Mary and Alicia did not agree with this decision. I am curious whether Vermin Supreme recused himself from the jurisdictional question. He already admitted that he couldn't be unbiased. Now he could go, well, I can interpret bylaws in an unbiased way. No, you can't. No, you can't. Nobody does. So hopefully he recused himself. But we'll see. We'll see the votes eventually. Tom resigned, so we're left with Mary, Alicia, D. Frank, and Jim Turney, and Chuck Moulton. Oh my God! No! Okay, I'm back. I'm sorry, that do not disturb should have worked, but now you all get to see me running around. I have a feeling the vote was 3-2, with Alicia and Mary on the losing side, D. Frank, Jim, and Chuck on the side that they didn't have jurisdiction. I'm guessing. But yeah, basically they punted it. But I'm not going to say, I don't like that word punt because it implies bad faith. And it doesn't really, but it can. And I don't mean to imply bad faith at all. But it's a very bad decision. There might not have been bad faith, but let me just make a joke. It's a bad ruling, and they should feel bad about it. It opens the door for... It basically... My God. I don't allow D&D exceptions, Stephen, though. I know for like friends or if you have kids, I have nobody on my D&D exception list. Nobody. None. There's no reason this should be happening. Because I don't have kids, and I'm never put it on D&D long enough to make a difference. All right, sorry about that. That's just going to keep happening till I can... I did that, Tyler. That's what I'm saying. I did that, and it's not working. So we're just going to have to deal with it. Okay. Now, let's pull up their actual decision, which will quote the bylaw. I'll tell you why I think it's a terrible decision. Completely unjust and misapplied. And I am of the school, and well, Hector, they didn't even have to consider it. We argued in our appeal that it's irrelevant whether this JC hears it or not, that it could be, the hearing could be scheduled for next term. The JC doesn't end at convention. It just changes members. The JC is a committee that never ceases to exist. It just changes members. That doesn't matter. Economy would dictate that you just hold it over till the next JC instead of making us refile everything. I mean, that economy argument goes both ways. And the bad precedent they set with this, there needs to be some kind of bylaws clarification, because this is a really, really bad precedent. My God. Why does it keep doing it and stopping, too? That's what's crazy. Oh, well. I'll just keep talking, or I'll start putting things up on screen. That doesn't matter what my phone is doing. I'll start sharing my screen, but that will take the chat off the screen. But let me pull up their decision. If I can find it easy. Just give me 1 second. JJ, why are you emailing me in the middle of the show? I know that, JJ. That's why I'm starting that. Never mind. That's why I'm writing it now. Okay. I can't go into airplane mode. I need Wi-Fi for the program I'm using, Tyler. Excuse me. Pardon me. Let's see. Where is their decision? Here it is. Okay. Okay. Yeah. This JC has been horribly inconsistent, and that is very unfair to the membership, to be honest with you. But let's I want to open a new screen and share it. Nope, that's not a new screen. Hold on. Here's a new screen. Okay, now you see me all big. Get to see my messy studio that I crop out. All right, we're going to share this screen. Okay, I didn't print this out, so I am going to take me off screen so I can get right up and read this and you're not looking at my nose. All righty. So it says, the JC has concluded that the LP bylaws do not allow the current JC to hear this appeal. Specifically, the LP bylaws, page 4. That's weird. She gave a page number instead of an article number. Page numbers can differ. Never mind. It doesn't matter. Anyone can find this. So basically, she's citing that the Judicial Committee shall issue its ruling within 30 days of the hearing and in no case later than 90 days prior to regular convention. And this is dealing with the bylaw that says the affiliate party may challenge the revocation of its status by written appeal to the Judicial Committee. Now, I want to pull up the LP bylaws because this bylaw doesn't appear in isolation. It's connected to the bylaw that goes before it. It limits the JC jurisdiction on the bylaw that went before it, but we weren't arguing the bylaw that went before it. It's absolutely incoherent decision. Okay, let me search for the word challenge. I think that was in there. Okay, right here. So it's Article 5, Section 6. The National Committee shall have the power to revoke the status of any affiliate party for cause by a vote of 3/4 of the entire National Committee. And then it goes on. A motion to revoke the status of an affiliate for cause must specify the nature of the cause. The affiliate party may challenge the revocation. This is where she went on to cite. We are not claiming that the LNC voted to revoke the status of an affiliate. We are not claiming any of that. So to apply the time frames that apply to an explicit disaffiliation is absolutely incoherent when it comes to a constructive disaffiliation. Because a constructive disaffiliation, the whole point is that the LNC didn't have a vote. They just did it through their actions. So to apply time limits that apply to an express disaffiliation make no sense. And it gives basically a permission slip to the LNC to constructively disaffiliate anyone they want as long as it's within 90 days of convention and no one can do a thing about it. That is not what this bylaw is for. And that there is, I'm trying to see, I'm looking at the comments, JJ. I'm not so sure what that means. And there's no final decision. Okay. Got you, JJ. I thought that's what it meant. I'm sorry you guys can't see these comments. If you're in YouTube, where you should be, because it helps my algorithm, you see them. So applying this bylaw is completely incoherent and unjust. And anything that is incoherent and unjust is not the meaning of the bylaw, just by definition. These are libertarian bylaws. And I can tell you one way, because you can't pick and choose. One second here. It says the affiliate party has to file revocation within 30 days of the receipt of notice of such revocation. And there's no date of revocation because it's a pattern of actions. Like, none of this bylaw applies explicitly to constructive disaffiliation, which is the LNC going behind, as I put it, behind the bylaws. So it's absolutely incoherent. And I basically said that. Well, I'll show you on screen what I wrote back. I wrote back, thank you for the JC's consideration. I offer a brief comment in case any JC members wish to bring a reconsideration. All the bylaws have to be read in harmony, and any interpretation that renders others absurd cannot be correct. The bylaws do not recognize constructive disaffiliation as it is behind the bylaws act of the LNC. To apply the same notice requirements is to ignore that this bylaw is about express disaffiliation and to give any LNC a free shot to constructively disaffiliate any affiliate within a 90-day window, which basically gives them control of the convention if they wished. I appreciate that people of good faith can disagree, but I do feel strongly that this makes them mash out of the rights of affiliates. I would note also that the appellant was told directly that judicial economy should have had this issue be part of the first appeal, or at least part of it, but that was less than 90 days prior to convention as well. Now, of course, that was not an official ruling, but it seemed like impossible advice would not have been offered. I would also note to the other interested parties, this says nothing about the merits of the issue, and the appellant fully agrees with the dicta in the Matson opinion in the first appeal. And what the dicta in the Matson opinion in the first appeal said, basically, well, this probably is very damn close to an exact quote. There is no doubt that the legitimate chair of LAMA is Andrew Cordia. And we agree fully with her reasoning and her conclusion. It was in dicta. Dicta meaning, for those who don't know, I'm using legal terminology. Dicta means extra opinions offered by a judicial body that are extra. They're not binding. They're not rulings. They're just opinions of a judge that can't be cited as law, basically. I'm wondering if I just gave a good definition. It's been a while since I've been in paralegal school. Let's look that up because I like to be accurate. Definition of dicta. I always like seeing if I define words properly too. Well, it says a formal pronouncement from an authoritative source. That's not a legal definition though. Okay, here's a legal definition. A remark, statement, or observation of a judge that is not a necessary part of the legal reasoning needed to reach the decision in a case. Although dictum may be cited in a legal argument, it is not binding as legal precedent, meaning that other courts are not required to accept it. Dictum is an abbreviation of the Latin phrase obiter dictum, which means a remark by the way or an aside. So I defined it very well, I think. Okay. So that's where we're at. And this is, my God, here we go again. Let's just go back to here. We're going to go back to my screen so you can, so there's the definition. Okay. Sorry about that. I'm going to have to figure out my phone. nobody said this was a professional broadcast. So I assume that the appellants, is obviously their decision, will be continuing to pursue this after Reno. I don't know what Hector is saying, what's being declared in the Credentials Committee. There's no notice being... Hector, I have no idea what you're talking about. I think you misunderstood what JJ said, to be honest with you. What JJ said is that a Credentials Committee member said that they will be bringing a reconsideration motion if there is a final adverse ruling against the people they sat. That's all JJ said. There's no funny business here or anything to be contradicted. There's no final adverse ruling against the people that are set. There's just a we can't hear it at this time. That's not an adverse ruling. That's a we can't hear it at this time. Bring it after convention. So I think you fundamentally, Hector, misunderstood what JJ was saying, but it was kind of parliamentary-like talk, so I don't blame you. You probably have more of a life than either JJ or I do. Tyler asks, can't someone just bring it before the delegates at convention and have them decide? And Hector says, someone could declare this latest JC decision as final. It's not an adverse decision, though. There's a legal terminology to adverse and final. I mean, I'm sure they could, because these same people are saying words or violence, which, you shouldn't be able to say as well. So I'm sure people can make that argument, Hector. I wouldn't put it past them, but it's not a valid argument. And the maker of the motion gets to define what he meant. And I don't know who made the motion, by the way. Maybe they will try to redefine it that way. So it says, can the delegates just let them decide? It depends on what question you're talking about. Are you talking about who gets seated? Right, I agree with JJ. A ruling that the Graham Group was the actual affiliate would be final and adverse. There's no adverse ruling. It's a standstill. It's not adverse. It's a status quo. Tyler, it depends on what you mean by it. If you mean who gets seated, that is going to ultimately be decided by the delegates at convention. It's just a question of who is seated to vote in other disputes should they come first. If a challenge on the Massachusetts delegation is first, it's a distinction without a difference who is seated. Unless JJ is going to tell me that there's a difference. But if the Massachusetts challenge, if there are multiple challenges, which most people believe there'll be at least Massachusetts and Delaware, but most people believe there'll probably be a few more. Not as many as people think, I don't think, though. But if Massachusetts is not the first challenge, it makes all the difference in the world who is seated. Because they're presumptive delegates and get to vote on the challenge to other delegations. And that's why it matters, even though the delegates at convention will ultimately decide who gets seated. No matter what the credentials report says. The ultimate final say will be with the delegates. But if by it, Tyler, you mean who is the actual affiliate, I don't think they can. JJ would probably be able to better answer that, but I think in the bylaws, that power is reserved to the LNC. Hector says, I will leave that question to JJ if he cares to answer it. Can the delegates resolve the dispute of LAMA's formal recognition? I think they can issue a resolution, and ask the LNC to follow it, but the bylaws reserve that ultimate power to the LNC. Now, I think it'd be pretty powerful to resolve that and see if the LNC would defy a resolution of the delegates. But see, JJ agrees with me. I don't think the delegates at convention can formally say, nope, we are recognizing as it's our affiliate. The seating of the delegates does not make this determination. It can be a factor in a later motion before the LNC or judicial committee appeal, but it's not determinative. Tyler, I am saying it violates the party bylaws because the bylaws reserve this power to the LNC. So it would violate the bylaws because the bylaws explicitly reserve this power to somebody or something. No, the LNC can disagree with the Assembly on things explicitly referred to it. I don't agree with that, by the way. But under Roberts, they can. I don't agree with that. I'm a heretic. We could make a bylaw that makes any determination by delegates at convention binding. I would think that an ethical LNC would consider itself voluntarily bound. But right now, there are certain things that are reserved to the LNC that they can disagree with the Assembly. Plenary control of the party rests with the LNC as well. I would love to see a bylaw taking some of that away. Ethically, I don't think they should be able to. I would have to see a citation there, Matt. I would have to see a citation because I think that has a lot of qualifications attached to it in context. So, again, JJ's the PRP, so if you want to address that, JJ, I'd love to hear your opinion on that. You know I philosophically disagree that the LNC can disagree with the Assembly. I think that's wrong. Philosophically, ethically, in every libertarian sense of the word. But parliamentary-wise, I think they can. But my higher value isn't parliamentary stuff. It's libertarian principles. That's my interpretive grid, and I make no bones about it. Which is why I believe we need to put in a recall provision for the members when it comes to the LNC. Because otherwise, we're stuck with them for 2 years. Now, regionals, that's different. But everyone but the regions, see, you both are agreeing on the citation, but disagreeing on the interpretation. I don't have the new Roberts with me. I've got the old version. I don't know what 49.7 is in the 11th, because this is Mike Seebeck's, because in the Cult of R.O.N.R., the calendar we're using still references the 11th, so I only have the 11th down here. But I'll let JJ duke that out. Maybe we'll cover that in Cult of R.O.N.R. That would be fun. Brody, yeah, oh my God, can you imagine? Oh, you do agree. So, Matt said, though, okay, now I want to clear this up. Matt said that the LNC cannot disagree with the assembly. So if the assembly says the affiliate is X, but that power is reserved to the LNC, does the LNC then have to follow that determination by the delegates? JJ, so I'd be very interested in that, because I'd be very pleased if that were the case, and then that would answer Tyler's question. But Matt, here's how I would argue the other side. There's already been a decision of the assembly to give that power to the LNC. And the assembly can amend that bylaw. That's how the assembly would take that power back. But the assembly doesn't just include the assembly in Reno, this convention. It includes all the past assemblies that have made decisions, including those that first put those provisions into the bylaws. Yeah. Okay, so we're both right. They do, asterisk. Okay, we've got that cleared up. Now, ethically, Matt, I'm on your side. I don't care if the bylaws put it exclusively under the board. JJ, that's not what Matt thought earlier, though. But we're all on the same page now. Ethically, though, I think if the convention tells the LNC something, even if that power is reserved to them by the bylaws, they should follow the assembly. To me, that's the libertarian principle that overrides Roberts as far as I'm concerned. Wouldn't win in a court of law or anything on that. But to get back to recall, there needs to be a method for recall of the LNC by the membership if the LNC disobeys the will of the membership. But we don't have that power right now. So the LNC could go, yeah, that's nice. You passed that resolution, and we don't care. And then you're stuck with them for 2 years. So like what happened in my case, where they, kicked me off because they didn't like me, the LNC should not have that power, but the delegates should. By a sufficiently high margin, the delegates should be able to remove the LNC for any reason they want. Literally. The LNC's removal power should be very, very, very limited. But the delegates' power should be much greater, but it should require a sufficiently high threshold. So, I'm not going to get into these weird subjunctives on this show, Tyler, though that would be interesting for Cult of R.O.N.R., but we're getting off the path of LAMA here. I think we answered the question that the convention can issue a resolution and an ethical LNC will follow it. But they don't have to, and there's not a damn thing you can do about it. Okay, so now we saw the JC ruling. I explained why I think it's incoherent and unjust. You want to know what the convention can do, though, Tyler. The convention can issue a resolution that interprets that bylaw that I believe the JC misinterpreted. The convention, this will just help future cases. This really won't help LAMA, but it would help future constructive disaffiliations. The convention can issue a resolution that says whatever that bylaw thing is that the timeframes mentioned therein do not apply to cases of constructive disaffiliation. The convention can do that. And I might actually consider that resolution. Something similar to that happened in Colorado, not with disaffiliations, but the convention issuing an interpretation of a bylaw to, instead of to get the JC to make a decision, but to stop the JC from exercising jurisdiction where they didn't have any. They made it absolutely clear that that bylaw prohibited the JC from interfering in something. Parallel situations, but kind of flip. But same concept. So now the LNC responded to the appeal. I read the response. Nearly every single point raised in their response was anticipated in my appeal that I wrote. I say it's Massachusetts appeal, but there's no secret that I wrote it. It was approved by the appellant, but there's no secret that I wrote it. You know, they helped fill in facts. They assisted with me. So when I say that's why I say that, because I authored it. So I feel kind of an ownership of it, but it belongs to the appellant. We're going to go back here and just keep dictum on the screen so you don't see a blank screen. Now we can go back. I forgot where I was going with that. Oh, so I, in the response that I authored, anticipated the arguments they would make and already rebutted them, and they didn't interact really with the rebuttal. They did a little bit. So I'm content with the LNC response to just let people read the appeal, read the LNC response, and decide for yourself. Plus, the response of this LNC now, because of this JC ruling, is irrelevant. This LNC will not be involved if there's a future appeal. Some members of this LNC may get reelected and be part of it, but it's a new LNC term. It's a new LNC. So their response is functionally irrelevant, so I don't want to spend time on it. I don't think it's a good response. I don't think it was terrible, however. The intention, Tyler, of a bylaw does come into play if there's an ambiguity. Original intention, however, does not matter if there's no ambiguity. And if people wrote a bylaw that unambiguously says something they didn't intend, bad on them. But original intent can be a factor in interpretation, but an ambiguity has to exist first. So that's why you need to write good bylaws, not you personally. And that's why my latest pet peeve is state affiliates, please consult with a parliamentarian with your bylaws committee. Bylaws committees are not committees to just put people on because they want to volunteer. Unless you would just let any rando who volunteered write your will that the future of your children is going to depend upon. Don't do it. It takes a certain expertise. Like, please. It's serious business. Okay. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. So the LNC response, I didn't think was terrible. I didn't think it was great, but I didn't think it was terrible. But it's irrelevant. The LAMA response, however, the fake LAMA response, these people are still going to be arguing, the same people, after convention. So it's still relevant. And we're going to go through it. And it is terrible. It's just a bad response. Like, we're going to go through it. It's objectively bad. I do not know who wrote it. But looking at the style of how it's written, it looks like an attorney wrote it, because it really is in a legal style of a pleading that someone would file in court. And most non-legal people wouldn't do this. I would, because I'm a paralegal. A non-legal person would not write with like a case caption like that. This is just like a court filing. So I don't know who. It's signed, I think, by the chair. No, it's not signed by anybody. It's just on behalf of the fake LAMA. So it's a corporate response. I don't mean corporate as in corporation. I mean as in collective response. But if I had money to bet and I was a betting person, I'd bet an attorney wrote this. It's not a good response, however. Which an attorney should write a better response. An attorney wrote the LNC's response too, by the way. It was Oliver Hall again. And this time he did a much better job, in my opinion. It's still not good. Didn't answer. Let me put it this way. I don't want to say it wasn't good. It wasn't bad. Let's put it that way. Not being bad is not the same as not being good. I'm kind of like neutral on it. And no, Tyler, it doesn't look like Nick wrote this. Nick actually is a very good attorney. No matter what you might think of Nick personally, he's a good presiding officer and he's a good attorney. This wasn't written by Nick. Nick wouldn't make some of the mistakes that were made in here. Part of the problem I can tell you in here, and this is why all these people who have a fetish to get rid of Roberts, which basically encapsulates general parliamentary law, which you'll be under if you don't have a parliamentary authority, and you think democratic rules of order are great, this is what you get. It's obvious whoever wrote this doesn't understand Roberts or general parliamentary law. They just don't. And that's a shortcoming. It's a shortcoming at convention. It's a shortcoming in these kinds of disputes. Also, to the best of my knowledge, and I've talked to the people involved, there are outright falsehoods in here. Have I, gone to the Secretary of State or anything about any of it? No. I'm taking the word of people I trust that there's falsehoods in here. And we're going to go over that. And shame on you, whoever wrote this, if in fact these things are false. And if this was a legal pleading, which it's not, but if you had filed this in court, you'd have been in trouble with the bar. But it's not in court, and no attorney signed it. But I bet you an attorney wrote it. I didn't download the PDF file and look at the metadata. Maybe I should do that and find out who wrote it. Because it seems attorneys nowadays aren't cleaning the metadata as they should, which is just shocking to me. It's one of the first things you learn as a paralegal. Clean that metadata. I don't have Adobe Pro on here because I would love to look up that metadata right now. If anyone else has a copy of this that got sent out by the JC, or you've got the ability to look at metadata, I'll forward you this file. Very curious. But we're going to pull it up now. Comments are not going to be on the screen. Yeah, Brody, check it. You've got it. Check it. I'm curious. Now, it might have gone through several revisions with different people, so it might not be entirely accurate, but I'd be curious as to what it says. All right. Now we're going to pull it up. Comments will no longer be on the screen, so I will read out comments I'm responding to so as not to frustrate viewers. This got the wider angle again. Oh, I look fat in this shirt in that angle. And you can see my huge mess. And you see my little heater here because I'm cold. And, just for old time's sake, you see my giant ass vote Clark for president bumpers. Ooh, it smells moldy. Oh, that mold went right up my nose. All right, let's get into it. We're going to skip past some things. I'd say a good 1/3 of this response is completely irrelevant to the appeal. It's filler. It's just filler. It's throwing, what is it that they tell lawyers, when you have the the facts on your side, pound the facts, but when you don't, pound the podium. There's a lot of podium pounding in here. Okay, the respondents are using the same terminology we did. They think Mattson's factual background, whatever. Yeah, but they deny that Mattson's discussion is relevant to this present petition. That is just horse patooky. It's directly relevant. She got into all of the parliamentary issues and arrived at a dicta conclusion that there is no dispute that Andrew Cordio is the legitimate chair. How is that not relevant? If you just hand wave it away? Okay, we'll see if he explains how it's not relevant. And Brody says metadata looks clean. Did better than Oliver Hall then. All right. It says the respondents agree that on January 10th, the Shade Committee voted to expel and did expel all who signed the petition. Kind of correct, might be picking nits. We do say they voted to expel. We deny that they did expel. We say the expulsions were invalid. So I'm not going to say whoever wrote this was being misleading here. We just might be differing on terminology. But no, we do not agree that the members were expelled. We agree that the Shade Committee thinks they are, and that it was illegitimate. I think that's a really important distinction, though. But again, I'm not going to say that was any kind of purposeful obfuscation there. Okay, second page. Says they organized a purported special convention. I'm not going to get all butthurt over the use of the words purported. We used it in the appeal as well. That's proper terminology. So is alleged, purported, whatever, because they disagree. I have no problem with that. But it says they have no legal effect and do not bind LAMA. Incorrect. Absolutely incorrect. Here's what he didn't address here. He might have addressed it later. My God, the reasoning here is just so bad. In order for him to say they have no legal effect and do not bind LAMA, he has to assume that the expulsions were valid. It gets very circular here because he goes on to say, and I'm just saying he generically, this could have been an attorney of any gender or no gender. I'm using he as a generic term. Whether or not the LNC or JC views the expulsions as improper or illegitimate has no bearing on the subsequent actions taken by those expelled. That's the only issue that matters at this point, dude. Of course it does. You can't illegitimately expel people in order to prevent them from doing something you won't like by saying they were expelled so they couldn't do it. How do you not get that? That is the issue that gets danced around entirely in this. Entirely. It is like, and I'll use this analogy in multiple forms throughout the show. It is like someone breaking your legs and then saying, after you crawled to the finish line, no, this was a race. And since you didn't run, no, you didn't actually make it to the finish line. I win. Dude, you broke their legs. You can't by your own actions, make something impossible and then point to the impossibility as your justification. That is the epitome of circular reasoning. Let's all sing with Barbara. And the circle goes round and round. No circle has ever been rounder. God, I hope you don't argue in court like this. So it says, the special conventions weren't valid because there weren't enough LAMA members to constitute a quorum, because you can't count the expelled people. So, in other words, he's saying the state committee can always prevent there being a quorum of people who would vote in a way they don't like by just preemptively expelling them, whether it's justified or not, because whether or not the expulsions were justified is irrelevant. No, dude, it's the only thing that's relevant. My God, there is no way you believe this. Because anyone who thinks this is good reasoning, I'm worried about you. I'm worried that you walk into walls face first. Honestly. Because this is just smoke and mirrors. Whether the expulsions are proper or not is the question that must be answered first. You do not get even into the other questions. There are some ancillary questions or orthogonal questions, but when it gets down to the meat of what's going on here, those are the questions. If the expulsions were valid, nearly every other question answers itself. If the expulsions were invalid, one question is answered, and that is that there is no legitimate re-elected successor to the Shade Committee. Because you cannot have a valid convention in which people were illegitimately expelled, therefore denied voting rights in an amount, in a number that could have affected the results. Considering there were more people expelled than even attended that convention, it is pretty patently obvious that more people were expelled than, is necessary to affect the results. So, whether or not the expulsions were valid is the question that has to be answered before you can get to whether or not the Graham Committee is the legitimate successor to the Shade Committee. Now, the expulsions being invalid do not automatically make the Cordio Committee the correct committee. If the expulsions were invalid, someone could come to the conclusion that there is no longer any board in Massachusetts, and it just becomes a big hot mess. But the one conclusion you cannot come to without dealing with whether the expulsions were valid is that the Graham Committee is legitimate and the delegates elected at that convention are legitimate. You cannot come to that conclusion until you answer the question of the expulsions. I do not need to go any further in this response because that right there just shows you he does not understand parliamentary law. He doesn't. Because if he does and made that statement, he's being purposely dishonest. And I don't want to say he's being purposely dishonest. I'm going to say he just doesn't understand and doesn't have very good logical reasoning skills. This is just a bad, bad response. But I'm not going to say yet. There are some points where it was either reckless or purposely dishonest. And we'll just go with reckless. And then it says, oh my God, it gets worse. And then it says they violated the Constitution because it says special conventions can only be organized by the state committee. The state committee refused to. They contravened the Constitution says, upon petition by a required amount of members, which I think that's now conceded that there was a petition by the required amount of members, the state committee must, not should, must, it actually uses the words must, organize a special convention. His defense is, well, we didn't. So too bad, so sad. In other words, they violated the Constitution first, making it impossible to then fulfill the second section, and then blames the people that they made it impossible for not doing the impossible. Nice work if you can get it. That's how the state operates. Welcome to tyranny, whoever wrote this. Would you ever accept this from the government? It's kind of like way back when they were in the beginning stages of, and by the way, JJ, yeah, DRR would permit that, and obviously so does Roberts. And DRO only applies to their state committee meetings. They worded their parliamentary authority in their constitution very poorly. There is no parliamentary authority for conventions or anything else. DRO only governs state committee meetings. So conventions and everything else are under general parliamentary law and custom. And guess what the custom is? Their past parliamentary authority that governed everything was Roberts. Oops. George Phillies screwed that one up. I think he's the one who made that change. He didn't word it very well. So, a different analogy I'm going to give is back during the times when the government was in the process of making marijuana illegal. They would issue, they'd say, oh no, it's not illegal. You can have marijuana, but you've got to get these marijuana tax stamps. But it was impossible to get the tax stamps. So, could you own it or not? Well, you could. That's like me saying, well, you know, you could hatch a chicken. You just gotta lay an egg. I suppose if you could lay an egg, maybe you could hatch a chicken. But seeing how it's impossible for a human being to lay an egg, no, you can't hatch a chicken. You cannot create the situation that makes it impossible for someone to continue exercising their rights and say they're not allowed to exercise their rights because it's impossible for them to do so, when you're the one who created the impossibility. This is like a basic concept of justice. It's just unreal to me that they actually argued this way. And we did already answer this in the appeal. And it just makes a lot of ipsa dixit statements. Ipsa dixit, oh crap, means kind of like, because I say so. Let me see if I'm defining that well. Am I defining ipsa dixit right? I think I am. Ipsa dixit. A dogmatic and unproven statement. Yeah, basically, because I said so. So I defined it. I defined it just fine. All right. So that deals with that. And it says, we refuse to give, basically, they don't say it in this words. I'm going to say it in reality. We refuse to give them the mailing list of members. So, oh, great. Well, wow, I went sideways there a second. See how it says do not disturb on? See? It says that on my screen, yet it disturbed. Proof. Receipts. So they're basically saying we refuse to give them the membership list in order to mail the members, but they didn't mail the members. So they're in violation. No, dude, you're in violation. You cannot claim their alleged violation. Okay, let me give you, God, this is really going into the weeds, but I think it's a really good analogy. You guys are going to go, oh my God, where's she going with this? No, software update. Okay, software update tried to interrupt me. In the case of a human shield, I know this is really going into the weeds, but let's say a bad man grabs an innocent bystander, holds them up as a human shield, and around that human shield is shooting at you and is a pretty good shot and is very likely to kill you unless you defend yourself. But the only way you can defend yourself is by risking shooting also the innocent person that they're holding. Let's say in defending yourself, you end up killing the innocent person and the bad guy. Who is guilty of the death of the innocent person? You or the bad guy who put them in that position? Libertarian jurisprudence says the bad guy is guilty, not you. You were defending yourself. Your intent was not to kill anyone else, but it was inevitable. The person who is guilty of that death is the bad guy. You cannot use an innocent person as your shield and get away with it. That's exactly what they are doing here. They violated the Constitution, making it impossible for any of the other things to be fulfilled, causing all of the other violations, and then denying people their rights because they made it impossible. No, the first offender was you guys. You started the chain. That's not how justice works. And it's not even libertarian justice. I think that's basic concepts, even in the justice system we have today. This is the most unethical tripe. And whoever wrote this, just sorry, not sorry. You fundamentally misunderstand how this works. And then they go on to make the same argument about the regular convention, and it's just as flawed. It's just as flawed. Then they say, you didn't post things on the official website. We wouldn't give you access to do so on the official website. We refuse to turn over the assets. But the fact that you don't have the assets means that you're not the legitimate affiliate. But we just refuse to give it to you. Oh my God. How anyone thought this is an argument is beyond me. So, like an employer, you work, you expect your paycheck. They don't give you the paycheck and then say, well, if you worked, you would have gotten paid. You aren't paid, are you? Therefore, you didn't work. That's exactly the logic this person is using. JJ, it isn't about notice. I kind of skipped ahead. It says, the petitioners violated the LAMA Constitution by not making their contact information available in the newsletter or on their website. Plus, let's say all that's true. That has nothing to do with the appeal. Nothing. Because they go on to say they don't list the contact information, even on the website they claim is theirs. Only Andrew Cordio's contact information is there. Now, to be honest with you, I did not even go look to see if it says the entire board's contact information has to be there. Because it's irrelevant to the appeal. Okay. That doesn't mean anything with the appeal. Do you want to know how many little technical deficiencies like that probably every single state party has? That doesn't make the state party illegitimate. It just means they're not following their bylaws in that one instance. It doesn't have anything to do with the expulsions or the conventions or the legitimacy of the Cordio board. It has nothing. These are red herrings. Okay. Bad. Brody. Bad. It's irrelevant. And then it goes on to say they're violating campaign finance laws. Again, irrelevant to the appeal. I spoke very briefly with people involved in the legitimate affiliate, and they said this isn't true. And I am taking their word for it because I do not have time nor care enough to go and investigate in Massachusetts. And it's irrelevant. It's irrelevant to the appeal. Absolutely irrelevant. It might be a case for if the Cordio committee is recognized by the LNC, for the LNC to then disaffiliate them officially for not following laws. It would be relevant then. It's not relevant in this appeal. It's only relevant if the person who wrote this is saying, yeah, the LNC should recognize Cordio, but they're bad and they should be disaffiliated and us recognized. It's almost conceding the constructive disaffiliation, but just claiming it's justified. God, I hope an attorney didn't write this. And it says they violated the bylaws regarding signing the regional agreement. Irrelevant to the appeal. And And yeah, I've used that analogy too. JJ has put this in chat several times. It's the fruit of the poisonous tree. You can't set up something and then let all of the events that are inevitable from your setting up something to justify you. That's classic fruit of the poisonous tree. It's like when it's found that the police did something wrong, you know, violated your rights and going into your house, anything they found, even if what they found was, you know, a big frickin' stash of cocaine, it doesn't matter. Because the initial action was illegitimate. But as Brody is saying in chat, they did have a properly noticed meeting to approve the regional agreement. I think he's being slippery here, Brody, though, because he is claiming in order to be properly noticed, the Graham Committee had to notice it. It's like he's assuming what he wishes to prove. We didn't notice the meeting, therefore it's not properly noticed. But that presumes you are the proper committee, which is the very fact under dispute, and it's the most basic of logical fallacies to assume that which must be proven. So this is just false. Then it says, before turning to the merits of the matter, what was all this? All right. It says, the respondents note that all of the issues raised in this appeal could have been raised in the prior appeal. I do not agree. Other people do agree. Alicia Matson agrees. Other people agree. However, there is nothing in our bylaws that says when you have multiple causes that they have to be consolidated. Nothing says that. You can think it's rude. You can think it's a waste of judicial committee time, but there's no bylaw that says thou shalt not waste judicial committee time. I would say your invalid expulsions, which led to this whole thing, wasted the judicial committee's time. You're basically saying you didn't victim right. Well, you want to know what? Kiss my booty. I don't care if you think we victimed right. And then they go to argue no jurisdiction. Okay, at least now we're getting into things which are relevant. It says the LNC has taken no vote on the question of leadership. That's kind of the point of constructive disaffiliation. Constructive disaffiliation doesn't require a vote. It can be a vote on a different thing that leads to constructive disaffiliation, but it doesn't require a vote. But in fact, there was a vote. Oh, why did I froze? Am I frozen on your end too? Let me know. Let me go back here. I am frozen. Oh my God. Let me know if I am frozen on your end. It's not good on my end. Keep letting me know in chat because I may have to stop and restart the stream if I don't unfreeze. So I'm just going to keep talking as long as you guys can hear me because it is... And I'm getting a black screen here. Let me know what you see. Okay, well, as long as you can see the appeal, it doesn't matter whether you can see me, as long as you can hear me. My face isn't that important. So let's try to get through this without having to restart the stream. What I may do is just make the appeal full screen so that you won't be looking at me. Yeah, I see that. The appeal's showing, but I'm going to pull up the appeal full screen because my camera has froze. So give me 1 sec. Why is that doing that? Okay, we're going to go to a black screen here. Here we go. You should be seeing the appeal now, just that. And that's what we're going to go with. You should now be seeing just the appeal. Oh no, this is our appeal. We don't want this. Hold on. I'm looking. You'll have a black screen for a minute. I'm looking for their response on my computer. Right here. Okay, their response should now be on your screen. Okay. We're just gonna stick with this since my camera is acting up today. You don't need to see me. All right, so it says, in contrast to the first appeal, so I'm still dealing with A. There was a vote, actually. The vote was not to take on the Bowen appeal, but it doesn't matter. Constructive disaffiliation does not require a vote. It requires actions of the LNC that recognize the wrong affiliate. And then it says B, subsequent consideration of a motion that was ruled out of order. Okay, no, I think I'm on the wrong page here for you guys. One sec. Here we go. I'm on 7. Nope. One second. Okay, I am on 10A. Sorry about that. Wayne just got home. In 10B, they concede that there might be subsequent consideration. So they concede that a future LNC could still take this up, meaning that there's still a dispute. C, it says we're appealing the inaction of the LNC to recognize the Cordio Committee. It's not just inaction. It's inaction to recognize the Cordio Committee and action of recognizing somebody else. Both of those, I would argue, are necessary, though I could see mere inaction also resulting in constructive disaffiliation, but that's not the case here. So I'm not even going to get into that, because in our case, we are arguing not just failure to recognize, which is an action, by the way. It's not inaction, but let's just say it's inaction, but also the positive recognition of the wrong board. So C does not accurately represent our position. D, the theory, they just don't like the theory of constructive disaffiliation. Constructive disaffiliation, it's funny, he later appeals to the Oregon decision. The Oregon decision, if he really thinks that's what he wants to appeal to, the Oregon decision is what established the theory of constructive disaffiliation. I don't know if whoever wrote this knows that. And finally, he says, it would be absurd for this committee to encourage any group of former members. You are assuming, again, the expulsions were valid. I thought you said it didn't matter whether they were valid. And for the purpose of tying up LNC resources, I'm glad how you're telling us what the purpose is and whether party resources are better spent elsewhere. I'm a life member. I happen to think fighting tyrants is a perfectly appropriate use of party resources. You do not speak for me, dear sir. Can't help that it's out of focus on YouTube. And then it says, should the Judicial Committee assume jurisdiction, the Wagner rule. You mean the Wagner case in which the theory of constructive disaffiliation was followed? And then he goes on to say, the Wagner rule is extremely recent, exclamation point, precedent of this committee. More recent than Delaware? Does he realize that the Wagner decision was 10 years ago? 10 years out of the 50-year life of the party, unless my math sucks worse than I thought, is 20% of the life of the party ago. If we applied that to the United States, would we consider a decision, I'm getting my math really, 50 or so years ago to be a recent decision? No, we wouldn't. And would we consider it more recent than one that was like, say, last year? No, we wouldn't. My God. And it says, the Graham Committee is currently recognized by the state. They are not a recognized party in the state right now. But then again, I would say that the Wagner rule from 10 years ago, people can take that into consideration. I think that reasoning was a mistake, but at least this part of their appeal at least makes sense. I mean, of their response. Now, the Graham Committee controls all the assets. That's because you refuse to turn them over. That is not proof. That's actually proof of your wrongdoing. Like, that's irrelevant. So far, the only decent argument they've made in this response is 11A. And there's bad arguments mixed in, like the Wagner rule, and there's no rule. There's no Wagner rule. There's no such thing. If you mean the Wagner case, I don't think he realizes that was 10 years ago. Okay. Let's continue. C, campaign finance laws, irrelevant. The fact that you wouldn't turn over the name, irrelevant. That just allows people who, basically, as I said, when discussing with the, at the Judicial Committee hearing, when the marching band refuses to yield the field, it doesn't mean the football players are not entitled to it. It just means that the marching band is being a dick. There's no Wagner rule, dude. Like, I could tell right here now it's an attorney too. Because it's like, crap, what's the name of that case that, it was a decision that gave certain criteria for determining if somebody, Dauber, whether somebody should be considered an expert in federal court. And attorneys tend to call it the Dauber rule. And that's kind of like what he's doing here. You can tell this is an attorney by just the way some of this language is. And anyone else here who works in law will be like, I know that case. Okay. At least in federal court. Well, Moulton's an attorney too. So that kind of explains it as well. But thank you for bringing that up, JJ. But it's not a rule any more than me saying the Delaware rule. It's a former ruling that's a lot older than Delaware, if we're going to talk about precedent. And by the way, Oh, never mind. I misread something there. Okay. Yeah, this we already dealt with on 12. Okay, page 10 of 10. As a result of these facts, the LNC is never officially ruled on correct, because that's what constructive disaffiliation means. He implicitly recognized that. Thank you for proving that there is implicit recognition if you implicitly recognize the wrong state committee, you have constructively or implicitly not recognized the right state committee if you made a mistake, and that is exactly what constructive disaffiliation is. See, oh my God, I don't think he realized what he was saying there. Goes, while they have spilt a great deal of ink of how carefully they followed the Constitution and bylaws, which they clearly did not, yes, they did, to the extent that they could, after discounting where you guys made it impossible. Again, you cannot obstruct. You were the first violators. If you are going to claim there were other violations that flowed out of your first action, the fault on that goes to you. That's how it... Oh my God. Okay. It says they have not discussed in any detail the handover of leadership from the Shade Committee to the Graham Committee, because it's irrelevant. The Shade Committee illegitimately held onto the assets and then illegitimately transferred those assets to another illegitimate committee that was not legitimately elected because members were unjustly kept from voting because they were unjustly expelled. It all goes back to the expulsion. And it says, on information and belief, the Cordio Committee took none of these actions because you wouldn't turn it over. Oh my goodness. Okay. That was a stinkeroo. There were, I was being generous before where I'd said 1/3 of it was completely irrelevant. More than 1/2 was completely irrelevant. Another third, which probably part of it is, I'm trying to pull back up my see if my computer didn't unfreeze. So we're going to go back here where you can just look at this without seeing me, and we're going to close out here because my camera froze. You not know what though? Let me try plugging. Have you tried unplugging it and plugging it back in again? IT crowd reference. Hold on. Let me try. Yay! It worked. It worked. Okay. I don't know what's going on with my equipment today. Let's see if it worked here. Yay! But why am I... Okay. All right. So, that was a bad response. Objectively bad. Their strongest point was saying you should follow what happened in the Oregon decision 10 to 11 years ago rather than the Delaware decision of 2 months ago. And that's a bad argument, but at least it's a coherent one. Saying basically Delaware was a mistake and you need to go back to an earlier case, which had an entirely different fact pattern. Entirely different fact pattern. We're going to go over in the future exactly the issues in Oregon and the critical differences in the fact patterns. But primarily, is you did have two competing state leaderships. Neither of them were clearly correct. Both of them, by necessity, fudged. Because, from what I understand, there was a bylaws amendment made which made it screwed up the language about quorum and made it impossible for them to ever achieve quorum again to have another state convention to elect new leadership. So two different contending groups for leadership emerged, which both had their own conventions. Both of them did things that I don't think are on the up and up, but neither of them could claim to be 100% right. They both did things I didn't like because neither of them could follow the bylaws, not because of the wrongdoing of anybody, but because they screwed up their bylaws. Then Wagner got to the courthouse first to file that he was state chair. And basically, the JC back then said, well, because he made it to the courthouse first, he's the winner. That was a lot of their reasoning. And I don't think that's good reasoning. At one time, I can't remember everything I've said 6 years ago or whatever it might be, where I've learned an awful lot since then. I knew nothing back then. Let's just put it that way. But ultimately, the reason why I sided with the Wagner group was not because of a JC decision. It was because the Libertarians of Oregon overwhelmingly sided with the Wagner group, and it's their decision ultimately to make. Neither group was right, and I always said from the beginning that the LNC should have just disaffiliated everybody and invited the Oregon Libertarians to have an organizing convention. I always said that the LNC's only option in that case, when there was no clear winner, I guess. But even back then, even if there was a clear winner, I probably would have said the LNC shouldn't interfere. And I don't agree with the me of then. To the extent I said that, I fundamentally misunderstood the bylaws. I was wrong. But ultimately, I did say that the only option the LNC had in that fact pattern was disaffiliation. I still believe that. But then the JC ruled as it did. The Oregon Libertarians sided with Wagner. And it's their choice to make. Then you get into issues which there was a lawsuit filed. There's a question as to whether people intimately connected with the LNC funded part of that lawsuit. That's allegations. Some people claim they have receipts. That's another issue. If that's true, that certainly adds a wrinkle to it. And the fact is, defending one side was a lawyer who was an operative for the Republican Party. In actuality, one of the sides, the guy who was the alleged chair, set up in his office at the same address of the alleged rival Oregon Party campaign headquarters for Donald Trump. Completely different fact patterns. Now, I know some people go, but Mises, they're Republicans. Yet you say that. Show me where somebody in Massachusetts in an address that's assigned. Show me when Andrew Cordio sets up campaign headquarters for Donald Trump at the same address that is the address for LAMA. All of these, they're Republican. No. We were talking about actual, provable Republican operations here. And Mike, yeah, I just am being very cautious because I personally don't have the receipts. People I trust, though, said they have seen them. That's 10 years ago. I'm leaving that behind. But to claim that the things that happened in Oregon, and LNC members keep claiming this, are even remotely similar to the situation in Delaware or the situation in Massachusetts, you are... I'm going to now show all the kids how uncool I am. You're smoking alligator. Do you smoke alligator? I know that's like some kind of street drug. Oh, here we go again. That like can make you like chew people's faces off. But I'm so unhip, I don't even know like really what it is. I just know that one guy was on it and he chewed that guy's face off. I don't know if you smoke it, you snort it, whatever. You're taking alligator, man. If you think Oregon is even remotely similar to anything today. It's some bad drugs. You know, you need rehab or something. Before, like you literally chew somebody's face off. The fact pattern. Crocodile, not alligator. I'm such a boomer. Oh, well, at least you know, like, well, I might think it's like it should be perfectly legal to take drugs. I think I just proved right then that I'm really unhip. Unhip to the current drug scene. Crocodile, that's it. I said alligator. Oh, I'm so embarrassed. I sound like somebody's mom. Don't be smoking the pot. Don't be taking the pot, Jimmy. You're taking the pot, aren't you? Oh my God, that is hilarious. I can laugh at myself. Yes, Mom. Mom, I'm not taking the alligator, Mom. Oh my God. Anyway, not even remotely similar. Do I think the person that wrote this has any clue about any of those basic allegations in Oregon that I just gave you? No. Do I think most LNC members who like keep saying Oregon, Oregon, like they're a frickin' parrot, give me an Oregon, right? Do I think they know anything about any of that? No, they don't. Now, I do believe the right result ended up happening in Oregon. That the actual libertarians, even if they did things that I didn't care for, even if they at times believed the ends justified the means, which I do not agree with, was the Wagner Group. And Oregon libertarians agreed. The JC reasoning in that, as far as which one to recognize, wasn't good. And looking back, I think it was, Nick was on that JC. There were people very friendly to the Wagner faction on that JC. And was it purposeful bias? No, probably not, but there was some bias there. But they came to the right conclusion through very, very bad reasoning. The only good thing to come out of that decision is the idea of constructive disaffiliation, which I think is correct. And I believe that decision and that reasoning has been overturned by Delaware. Rightly so. Delaware affirmed constructive disaffiliation, rejected the Wagner test or Wagner rule. So, terrible, terrible response. And I beg you, fake LAMA, if the appeal has to be filed again, please refile your shitty response. Or perhaps in the interest of judicial economy, don't. Or perhaps in the interest of doing what's right, because, oh my God, everything you've done since then has been awful. The rescission, alleged, is in bad faith. Do you want to hear something else, Rich? Oh my God. And correct me, Brody, or anyone from LAMA who's in here, if I got this a little screwed up. First of all, they allegedly rescinded the expulsions. A, they're fake. They can't do that. But let's pretend they were real. Expulsions can't be rescinded. Procedural nitpicking, yes. But that's one of the few things that can't be rescinded. You can reinstate. That's the only way you can undo an expulsion, is to reinstate. You can't rescind an expulsion. And that does make a lot of difference, actually. It's not just a procedural nitpick. It might seem that way, but there are implications to both things. A rescission is as if it never happened. A reinstatement acknowledges it happened, but you're reversing through a different means. But anyway, they're fake. It doesn't matter. They can resolve that birds are real. It doesn't make birds real. Bada bang. So they allegedly rescinded the expulsions. And guess what they're doing? They're asking these people that they've jerked around to now pay dues for the amount of time that they said that they were expelled. That is like in China, allegedly, when they execute somebody, they send the family a bill for the bullet. And they are proceeding to now re-expel people who were part of that, or at least announce their intent to re-expel, maybe not all of them, but people who were part of the ones that were just let back in and asked to pay dues. Again, I guess they'll then do another alleged refund. This shit is crazy. And, at least for one of, they have started expulsion proceedings again against somebody who I believe was one of the original 47. It starts to get confusing because their answer to everything is expel, expel, expel. So, El Caro Internado, todos son caminos. So now they're proceeding to re-expel someone for things they said during the period of time that they told this person they weren't a member. Never mind that being just barking moonbat. Let's pretend there's no problem with that. It's word crimes. They're not accusing this person of stealing money, of committing aggression. Well, word aggression, but real aggression. This person said things they didn't like. And you could lay this shit all at the feet of the LNC who set this precedent. If you don't like this word crime stuff, don't ultimately blame the tyrants in Massachusetts. They're little tyrants, following the example of National. They never would have been emboldened to do that, but for what National did to me. Because I'm the original libertarian word criminal. Did I scare you? I'm pretty scary. These words of mine. Scary. Boo! Did I scare you? To think all of this trouble was started because some grown-ass adults couldn't handle the sharp tongue of a pink-haired, nearly elderly secretary. And you're ready to take on the state? You're worried about a mature, pacifist, pink-haired woman, but you're ready to take on the state. Yeah. Saying it out loud, it doesn't make much sense, does it? My God, have we turned into a clown car? We might end up talking about the Snowden thing in another episode. I didn't want to, because the whole thing frankly disgusts me. The way an American hero is being used and manipulated, it makes me want to literally throw up. I didn't want, but something else came out that makes me want to throw up even more. And I'll mention it, but we'll get into it in another thing. Apparently, there are people in the party who are upset at Snowden speaking for different reasons other than the games that Sarwark is playing, which is a legitimate reason. And you need to be clear, people aren't upset at Snowden speaking. They're upset at Sarwark using and manipulating the situation. There's a big difference. Those people are thrilled Snowden is speaking. There's a distinction to be made here, and lies are going on around social media about that. But there are actually people apparently in the party who've complained to some LNC members that they're upset about Snowden speaking because they don't want him to get a paycheck because he lives right now in Russia because we threw him out of this country, or we won't allow him to come back. He had to flee. And they think, because we think Russia is being bad to Ukraine, nobody in Russia should be able to get a paycheck, even if it's an American hero. What kind of cognitive dissonance do you have to have for that to make sense? Hold on. Let me find it. Where is it? Where is it? Maybe it's playing for you. It's my Make It Make Sense. It wasn't playing here. But make it make sense. That has to be one of the most twisted things I've ever heard in my life. That's worse than the game Sarwark is playing. To actually think that this guy who gave up everything to let us know what our government was doing, should be starved because Russia happened to take him in. That Russia's the country that would take him in means it now, because Russia bad, that he deserves to be starved. What the hell is wrong with you? That's twisted, man. That's beyond Sarwark twisted. That is twisted in a way that I'm not speechless much. But holy shit. The last of the Libertarians, right. That perspective is literally insane. It is barking moonbat to the 10th degree. My God. Now, it's sanctions are not libertarian in the slightest to begin with. Okay? But plenty of libertarians have their heresies. Whatever. Saying you agree with sanctions in general, I have a problem with, but I'm not going to freak out about. I'm sure that's not an unusual point of view, even though I think it's wrong. But to target it specifically at Snowden, what the hell is wrong with you? You are malfunctioning. Like, have you tried unplugging it and plugging it back in again? Because you need a moral reboot if you think that's ethical in any way. My God, have mercy on your soul. Wow. Like, which is why I'm probably going to discuss this in another show. All of the Sarwarkian bullshit, whatever. I was just going to let that go. But this Edward Snowden deserves to starve? No. No. Not today, Satan. Nope. Not on my watch. Nope. Nopers. No, I'm grumpy cat on that one. No, dog. Okay. Anything else we need to cover about Massachusetts? So here's where we're at to tie it all up in a neat bow. The credentialing committee decision as of right now stands. The seated delegates are the ones who are, in my opinion, obviously some people disagree. I don't think you can ethically disagree, is the Cordio Board's delegates. Those are the ones who will be listed on the credentials report. It doesn't mean the convention delegates can't move to amend the credentials report to strike them and insert. Why does everything I say sound filthy? To remove their names and put in the names of the Graham Board. Delegates can still do that. So that's where credential stands. Where the LNC stands, if the Cordio Board is the correct board, and I believe it undisputably is, the LNC has constructively disaffiliated them. They claim to be recognizing the Graham Board, but if the Graham Board is not the proper board of the affiliate, the LNC has basically effectively said there's no affiliate in Massachusetts. Depends on where you land on this. After Reno, again, the delegates can make a resolution instructing the LNC to recognize the Cordio Board. I'd vote for it. You can't make them, though. But an ethical LNC will follow a resolution of the convention, I believe. So you can do that. Just know it's not binding. And then immediately after adjournment, that 90-day window is up. Time's up. And the next LNC, and my recommendation, as of right now, not my decision, it's already written, is for the appellants, the minute after adjournment, to refile their appeal. I mean, literally. Hold on. Where's my gavel? Well, I don't have my gavel. I don't know what I did with my... Mike, do you have my gavel in your pocket, or are you just happy to see me? I don't have my gavel, so we're going to use this broken microphone instead. So immediately after adjournment, sine die, hit send on the appeal. Massachusetts will not take a full business day. 0. People aren't going to tolerate that crap. Hit send. Your decision. Now, I took it out, Mike, because I brought it with me somewhere. I didn't bring it back down here. It's still upstairs. It's in my backpack. I brought it with me to some convention. Florida, I think. I think I brought it with me when I was parliamentarian for Florida. But I bring it with me, just in case. Even though it's so delicate. I don't think... No, actually in Washington, they... Anna's chair there, it would have fit her. But a lot of the conventions, it's these big burly guys. I can just see them with my... Well, Florida, definitely a manly man. Oh my God, now I'm getting into like, I'm just putting my foot in it. Anyway, usually it's guys that are chairs. And I have a little delicate little gavel. But right now, y'all talk about it and decide. I would say immediately after adjournment, refile your appeal. Then the new LNC has a decision to make. It can fight it, or it can moot it. It can moot it by recognizing the Cordio Committee. That'll probably just draw a different appeal. Then the Graham Committee will probably appeal. I think an appeal is inevitable immediately with this new LNC. An appeal's inevitable, I think. Unless the Graham Committee finally sees the light and says, you know, it's over. They've already said that they intend upon playing games. Massachusetts law is weird. Come November, if I don't really know, I'm going to say this very inartfully because I don't understand y'all's laws, okay? Certain elections, they get 3%. The committee of that candidate automatically becomes the Libertarian Party of Massachusetts, something like that. And they are banking on getting control again in November through that 3%. Then the LNC is going to have a lot of decisions to make if it recognized a different board. It's going to have to decide whether it's going to want a wage battle with the state of Massachusetts, there's all kinds of things. I'm not an attorney. Definitely don't have any legal experience as a paralegal in that area of law. Can't even tell you. It'll have to be something that the LNC will have to consult with legal counsel about and decide what they want to do. But that's their plans. So they might not appeal. They might just wait till November. And that's, again, assuming that a new LNC sides with Cordio, or a new JC appeal sides with Cordio. So don't give me this crap about you being so concerned about party resources, unless I can spout this, or not me, because I won't. If I'm blessed to be reelected, I am. Everyone's already on notice that if I'm reelected as secretary, I will no longer be able to be directly involved. And already talked about this with my client, and arrangements have already been made to pass over, no names are mentioned at this point, to a different parliamentarian. So if I'm not reelected, I'm going to continue doing everything I can for them as their parliamentarian. If I am reelected, they'll be in good hands, but it won't be me. Because you can't have fiduciary duties to two entities which may end up being in a dispute. So, that's where we're at. And Datmo, yeah, that is according to Fishman. I don't trust. Hold on.
Objection, speculative.
I don't know Massachusetts law. I'm trusting what he says, which is probably a bad idea.
Objection, speculative.
But, yeah. And I don't know what it is Mike D is saying the state of Massachusetts doesn't care about. I don't know. I don't know what that means. I probably don't want to know what that means. I have a hard enough time keeping track of election laws in Colorado that I am not even right now. Maybe in the future I'll have to out of necessity, but right now, I still don't know what that means though, Mike, but that's okay. That's okay. I don't need to understand it at this point. Again, I'm an anarchist. I've already learned more about states and laws than I want to. It's giving me hives. But that'll be a thing for the lawyers, I suppose. And I'm not lawyers. That goes beyond parliamentary stuff. So, that's it for today. We're going to end just making sure there's no more questions or anything. Oh! Brody, you didn't remind me. One problem in all of this, particularly on social media, is you got certain people who are loudmouths, and I'm one of them, that you're used to hearing from. So you'll hear from somebody who speaks a lot for the other side, and you'll hear from me who speaks a lot for this side. And I think everyone tends to forget that behind the loudmouths, there are just ordinary, everyday people who are not celebritarians or YouTube hosts or have platforms. They're just everyday people. And these people, these real human people, are really hurt by all of this. We can talk about expulsions, and it's easy to talk about on paper. But when you have to actually look at somebody it happened to and hear from them, it's different. I think this discussion has gotten to the point where we've forgotten the humans and we've turned it into Roberts and the Mises Caucus and just dumb factional crap that we forgot about the humans. So, as long as the schedule can work out, before Sunday, maybe at the latest Sunday, I originally said the latest Saturday, but at the latest Sunday evening, I'm going to have on my show one of the expelled 47 who is not a Mises Caucus member. And we're going to humanize this thing and show you it's not about the Mises Caucus. And it's not just about rules and bylaws. It's about real flesh and blood human beings that deserve to be treated better than this. Because I'm tired of the humans being lost. So that's an upcoming show. I believe we decided who's coming on. But in case that schedule doesn't work out with that person, I don't want to say the name, but it will be a non-Mises Caucus person from the Expelled 47. Because I want you guys to see a real human being. So that's coming up in Massachusetts, here in my coverage of Massachusetts. So shameless grifting for Hector, because I adore Hector. Hector, you are triggering the living hell out of people. Hold on. For those of you who don't know, Hector has been making silly memes about how many days it is to Reno. And people, these are memes, mind you, from pop culture, are taking them and absolutely losing their ever-loving minds. Because they're taking them hyper literally and breaking down every aspect. And it's like, won't someone think of the memes? It's like, you guys are getting more upset about this than you were about the fact that the National Party has been completely impotent when it comes to the COVID regime. No. Some guy is making memes I don't like. That is what we have to get upset about. They have become Poe's Law, the living embodiment of Poe's Law. Oh, I thought you were... Hector, I'm going to give you credit because you're here and I adore you. Because the salt mining, these memes have made these people into living memes. Like, the memes have now become self-aware. Oh my God. Is this the beginning of Skynet? Hector, maybe you're bringing about the end of the world. Oh my God. Because the meme has just now, like the pod people and Invasion of the Body Snatchers, has now turned people into memes that are reproduced. Oh my God. This could be bad. This could be... Hector, you may have just destroyed the planet with your memes. The memes have become self-aware. We're going to be living in Terminator before you know it. Except for it's going to be memes running around. All right, guys. That's it for me for today. On that note, flex it. Donate to my campaign. How much actually do I need to raise for the literature I'd like to produce? Less than $200. If I don't get it, I don't get it. I'll cry. No, I won't. I want to put out nice bound copies of my secretarial strategic plan on my campaign table, and I want to pass out some Robert's Rules of Order cheat sheets to all the delegates that I want to reproduce. That's all I have left. I've got all my other swag. The mailers are out. Please let me know if and when you get a mailer. I don't trust the post office. You may end up getting it months from now. I did it as soon as I could. The delegate lists were late in coming out. I sent it like 2 days after I got the updated list. And it took 2 days, and maybe this was a mistake on my part, because when you get it, you'll see I handwrite a note on every single one. I believe in personalizing things. So I went through 5 pink pens doing those, because I think it was like 1,600 that I mailed out between delegates and alternates. And maybe it was 1,400, whatever. It was well over 1,000. I went through 5 pens because I wanted it not to look, fresh. I wanted it to look fresh. So, yeah, let me know when you get your mailers. If you get your mailers. If you can assist, I appreciate it. There's other ways to help. Venmo just seemed to be the easiest. But I have my GoFundMe. All those links are in old videos. Have a good day. I'm not sure if I'll have a show tomorrow. I've got a lot of things to do before convention. You got the one from December, Dave. The Christmas one. The one I'm talking about is my campaign one. Did you get that one? It looks like this. Hold on. So if you got that one, I'd really, really like to know. And this QR code here is for the cheat sheet that I want to print out and put on every delegate's, in front of a chair or whatever. And it's one that I passed out last convention. And on the back here, that QR code is for my strategic plan that I want to print out some bound copies on my campaign table. So really want to know when you guys get one of these mailers. And with that, ow! With that, I'll be off. Not sure when I'll be streaming again. And whenever I say that, I'll probably go live like 10 times tonight because something will set me off. I'm so busy though. Probably not. So you all have an awesome night. And if I don't see you before Reno, I hope to see you in Reno. Otherwise, afterwards, on the other side. Because we are in the final countdown. Yes. I love cheesy hair metal.
Given, that's how we live it. Don't be mad at the system, it's simply how we've existed. I hear a lot of people talking like they politicians or choose to be an accountant because it's safe in a business, not because they want to